All right, hey people, today is December 18th, 2021. It's about 4 p.m. here in Indiana. My name is Chris Lucas. This is my show, Fishing for Truth, on some of my other channels. One thing I like to say first off is on brand YouTube. Sorry I didn't start a show. Again, this is the problem I have. It's not that I'm ignoring people on there, but when I go to start a live cast, you can see I'm hitting the publish button. After a few seconds, it says problem creating. That's why I haven't been dealing with that. So anyway, let me just kind of start off by playing a few clips while I'm still kind of getting everything straightened out here. I got a friend that's got a channel on Odyssey. He goes by PatEwok. I'll kind of scroll down so you can see us. But right there is his channel's name, PatEwok. Anyway, he did this one video a couple of weeks ago, well, December 1st, 2021, where he's calling Pfizer. Now, we're all under the notion that this is all FDA approved, right? And the thing about it is, when he's calling them, you see that it's not actually FDA approved. And so I'll just go ahead and play that.
I responded to your comment. I'll definitely take your questions, and I will call back to Pfizer to get.
Okay, right now he's currently on hold with Pfizer, waiting for an employee to call, and he had to make a few attempts just to finally get a hold of one. So I'm guessing he probably spent like a couple hours just to do this one 20-minute video, just because of the way, how hard it is to get a hold of these people.
Hopefully those questions answered for sure. But like I said, because it's so late, it's like four more minutes to 5 o'clock my time out here. And like I said, I know they shut down. I was happy that they picked up. Sorry for the delay. I thought someone's coming back online. But for everyone else that's watching the video, check out.
Hi, thank you so much for holding.
Yeah, no problem.
Okay, I found the email. It says, emergency use of the vaccine have not been approved or licensed by the FDA, but have been authorized by the FDA under the emergency use authorization to prevent coronavirus disease in individuals 5 years of age and older. The emergency uses are only authorized for the duration of the declaration, the circumstances. Do you want me to send this to you?
Sure, that would be great.
Okay.
Now, this
What's
is
your name?
My name is Pat. Last name is Ewok, EWOK. And that's pretty much the first part of the email. It's PatEwok at protonmail.com.
Protonmail.com. Okay, I'll send it to you right away, Pat.
Okay. And that's for the community? Because I know the Pfizer one.
Not mentioning that by name, but
Well, go ahead and send that over to me, because like I have to talk to my boss here soon, and I just want to make sure that I explained why I haven't gotten the vaccine so far, and I told him is like, if I can't find the FDA approved one, then I'll probably hold off longer, but. I'm just worried.
Okay. Also know, like I said, we are closing in a few minutes, but I can give you the number to our medical department, and I believe it's option 2 that gives you a website for information on that, the brand name.
Okay. Yeah, let's do that.
Okay. It's 800 438
Okay.
1985. I believe it's the second option. The first one is I do believe it's option number 2, so you don't have to go through the whole spiel.
Yeah, that's fine. Cool. I will definitely.
Thank you very much, Pat, for calling Pfizer.
No problem. Thank you for the help.
PatEwok.
Pat,
It's PatEwok at protonmail.com.
yeah, Pat, PatEwok. Yep.
Okay. Thank you so much. You have a great evening.
You too. Thank you. Bye.
Okay, so that was about at the 15-minute part of that video where he's actually making that call. And over on Odyssey, I did put all the I did put these links in the description, at least for the first couple of things I'm playing. But I want to show you. So I know this is going to be a little small, but this is what they sent him. Let's see if I can get it a little bit larger. Anyway, it says emergency uses of the vaccine have not been approved or licensed by the FDA, but have been authorized by the FDA under an emergency use authorization to prevent coronavirus disease 2019 in individuals 5 years of age and older. The emergency uses are only authorized for the duration of the declaration that circumstances exist justifying the authorization of emergency use of the medical product under Section 564B1 of the FD&C Act, unless the declaration is terminated or authorization is revoked sooner. Please see emergency use authorization fact sheets for healthcare providers administering the vaccine. So the key takeaway to that is emergency uses of the vaccine have not been approved or licensed by the FDA. So they don't have they're not licensed yet. But have been authorized by the FDA under emergency use authorization. So what do we keep hearing? We keep hearing that this is FDA approved, FDA licensed. But if that's the case, why does it still have all these emergency use authorization protections? Why is it still so when it's still got all these protections against liability, is it actually approved? And also one other thing, and I'll play this clip about this woman named Alix Meyer explaining this on the David Knight show. He interviewed her, and he's going to explain a little bit about this emergency use authorization. Because here's the thing: if Comirnaty which is the Pfizer brand, if that was actually FDA approved, all the other vaccines have to come off the market. They all lose their emergency use authorization because under the emergency use authorization, the only reason why they're given emergency use is because there is no other treatment or drug available. So once one becomes that's FDA approved, all the other ones have to go away. So why is Moderna still on the market? Why is Johnson & Johnson? If Comirnaty is FDA approved and FDA licensed, why are those other two still on the market? Or any other vaccine still on the market in the United States? Can't be used here. Oh, it must be because it's all still under emergency use authorization. So, and here I'm going to play the clip, let this woman explain it. Like I said, I got this off of the David Knight show, December 15th, 2021. That's the name of the show if you want to see it. And I did put this link in the description box on my Odyssey broadcast.
Digital currency controlled by the federal government.
That's right.
So you have to know that all this stuff about COVID and the shots, it goes away as soon as everybody's on vaccine passports, and then those become our digital IDs.
That's right.
Let me go back. Sorry, I did a little digression, but or a long parenthetical, if you will. The fourth standard that they need to get these shots approved under emergency use authorization is there can be no adequate, available, and approved alternatives. That is why they're quashing ivermectin. That's why they're quashing hydroxychloroquine. That's why they quashed the study that Steve Kirsch did on this cocktail that supposedly cures COVID. They can't have anything on the market that competes with the vaccines. If they do, again, if anything is available and adequate and approved, then the EUA shots have to come off the market. And now that's another clue. That's how we also know that Comirnaty is not fully approved. If it were fully approved, all the EUA shots would have to come off the market, and we'd only have the Comirnaty.
Yeah. Oh, that's really important. Yeah, and that's key. We've seen the last three things, the effectiveness, the benefit risk, and we saw how they're lying about that. We saw how they're lying about all of these alternative treatments that are available. And yet it comes back to the very first thing, the emergency declaration, and keeping that thing running, and how that is a vital part of their legal authority to keep this going. And people don't even understand what the legal foundation is for that. That's why I've really hammered the fact that this is based on the emergency. That releases all of these dictatorial orders, as you pointed out, the PCR, the mask, but even the things that we're seeing being done by public health officials taking over and ruling as dictators, all of that is predicated on the legal powers that they have under this emergency, not to mention all the money. And of course, the money that big pharmaceutical companies are making out of this is a big part of the pie as well.
Exactly. Let me tell you what happened in California. I'm the board president of the California chapter of Children's Health Defense, as you know. And in California, we actually sued Governor Newsom in the California Supreme Court. He was speaking out of both sides of his mouth. On the one hand, he's saying it's an emergency lockdown. You can't be with your family or outside household members on the holidays. I mean, it's just brutal, right?
Yeah.
I mean, come on, give me a break. And then on the other side of his mouth, he was saying, all these cases from retailers and small businesses saying that they were ruined by, the lockdowns. It's not an emergency anymore. Those are moot. We have both sides in writing. And so we went to the California Supreme Court with this case. And Newsom's team had 10 days to respond. After 7 days, the Supreme Court got back to us. They dismissed the case, not even allowing his team time to respond to our complaint.
Wow.
Dismissed it. So
wow.
If that tells you how corrupt everything is all the way to the top in California.
Oh, yes. And of course, let's also talk about what happened earlier in 2019. And that began in California, also part of New York, where they were taking away the medical and religious exemptions for children in order to go to school. That was a big fight. I covered that a great deal. A lot of people showing up in the California State House, and they ran that through. It was very key for them to take away those exemptions, and they did it with the kids first. It was, I guess you could say, it was kind of a test case. And while all that was happening, you had Trump say, they got to get the shots. He sided with them on that issue. But talk a little bit about that. What happened? How they laid a lot of the foundation for getting rid of any exemptions with kids and with the MMR vaccine in California, New York, and I think it maybe New Jersey or something like that in 2019. Yeah.
Great question, David. Let me rewind history a little bit further back than that, because you can see all these pieces come into play leading up to COVID. And one of the first things that ties back into COVID is 2005, they passed the Real ID Act. And we believe that the Real ID is going to be the platform for the digital ID. And so that was put in place in 2005 after the 9/11 attacks happened.
That's right.
So that was one of the first things they did. Then in 2015 in California, they passed a law. It was Bill SB 277, excuse me. And that took away the personal belief exemption, like to send your kids to school in California. Shots were supposedly mandated, but really all you had to do is ask for this thing called the blue card, and you turn it over and you sign, no, thank you. Mm-hmm. I don't want the shots for my children. And that's something that I did when my children were in grade school, because I saw my daughter getting injured by vaccines, like I was injured by vaccines, and like my biological father was injured by vaccines. So you can see 3 generations. So at a certain point when my kids were 1, I said, enough, I'm not going to do it anymore. So I just used the blue card. Well, in 2015, they took that option away from us. And that personal belief exemption also included religious exemptions. So those were gone as well. And they officially added 10 shots to the children's schedule to attend school in California.
Wow.
Then they went even further in 2019 with SB 276, and they actually tried to criminalize doctors for writing medical exemptions under the penalty of perjury. They literally could have gone to jail for writing a medical exemption if Senator Pan deemed it inappropriate. That was his word. Mm-hmm. So they took it a lot further. And then also the really key thing to know is that SB 276 in 2019, it also established CARE, the California Immunization Registry. And my light bulbs went off like crazy when that happened, because I said, oh my gosh, that's the platform for tracking people's vaccination status. That's not just for the exceptions. That's just not just for the kids who aren't going to be getting these shots to go to school. They're going to roll that out to all children, and then they're going to put adult vaccination records on that. And then that, I believe, is going to tie back to the real ID someday.
Mm. I agree. And now we've got the next step of this, and that is the immunization.
Okay, so I'm just going to kind of stop it there. Let's see here. You know what? I hope my sound was playing. I think I forgot to check the audio. Oh boy. Well, hey, if it didn't play, I'm really sorry. But anyway, I think I started that clip when she was talking around the 29-minute mark. Oh my gosh. I hope our sound was on though. But anyway, let me kind of go to one more thing too. Because some people don't know about this, and I mean, this information's been out for a little while. But if you go to like the Centers for Health Security.org, in 2017, it was October 23rd, 2017, they published this article, called the SPARS pandemic, which was supposed to last from 2025 to 2028. It says here, I'll make it a little bit bigger. A futuristic scenario for public health risk communicators. But it was ran by John Hopkins, Bloomberg School of Public Health. So I'm just kind of stop here for a second, let you see some of the chapters. But to me, let's see here. I want to kind of get down to, oh yeah, right here when it says it's got the response, but then it's like got these like chapters on recovery, and one of them's vaccine injury, SPARS aftermath. And so when we go to page 59, so here we got vaccine injury, and so it says, in contrast to Elisa, I don't know how to pronounce it. Not all changes in opinion were in favor of public health messaging. As time passed, more and more people across the United States were vaccinated. Claims of adverse side effects began to emerge. Several parents claimed that their children were experiencing neurological symptoms similar to those seen among the livestock exposed to the GMI vaccine. By May 2027, parental anxiety around this claim had intensified to the point of lawsuits. That month, a group of parents whose children developed mental retardation as a result of encephalitis in the wake of Corovax vaccination sued the federal government, demanding removal of the liability shield protecting the pharmaceutical companies responsible for developing and manufacturing Corovax. The growing plaintiff cohort quickly withdrew their suit upon learning that the National Vaccine Injury Compensation Trust Fund and an emergency appropriation of funds authorized by Congress under the PrEP Act existed to provide financial reimbursement to those who were adversely affected by the Corovax vaccine in order to cover healthcare costs and other related expenses. Given the positive reaction to the federal government's response and the fact that the majority of U.S. citizens willing to be vaccinated had already been immunized, the negative publicity surrounding adverse reactions had little effect on the nationwide vaccination rates. The focus on adverse side effects, however, resulted in a considerable increase in the number of compensation claims filed, and many grew concerned about long-term effects that the Corovax could have on their health. This concern was particularly high among some African American parents who continued to question the government's motives regarding the Corovax vaccination campaign. So it says basically, it's kind of like the same scenario that's going on now, because it says while the FDA, CDC, and other agencies were busy researching possible connections between Corovax and reported neurological side effects, their efforts were continually undermined by epidemiological analysis produced by various non-governmental individuals and groups. A popular science blogger, EpiGirl, for example, began posting interactive maps of the incidence of Corovac side effects. In April 2027, to create the maps, EpiGirl collected anecdotes of adverse Corovac side effects using Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube, and combined them with data downloaded from the HHS Vaccine Adverse Events Reporting System, VAERS, a national vaccine safety surveillance program maintained by the CDC and FDA. EpiGirl also encouraged those among her subscribers who were Apple product users to share health data with her via Apple's Research Kit and Health Kit applications. EpiGirl's maps were consequently shared widely in social media circles and even included local and national news reports. So basically, I guess like this person, while they seem to try to downplay her information, I guess like there's basically, I guess she's sort of like people like me and others who've been reporting on all this stuff. Tim Truth does a lot of really good reporting. People like that, as they keep pushing more and more information, like sometimes it gets picked up by the public and it becomes kind of like a threat to their narrative. Even though they don't quite phrase it that way, but that's kind of what they're explaining here is how something like that becomes a threat to their narrative. But I just also want to kind of go down to because this bottom part where it ends. Yeah, it says SPARS Aftermath, Chapter 19, which starts on page 66. Today, nearly 5 years since St. Paul acute respiratory syndrome, coronavirus. So that's another part of this SPARS. They called it the St. Paul acute respiratory syndrome coronavirus. So this was a coronavirus simulation in that 2017 model. So that's also one more key thing to understand. But anyway, today, nearly 5 years since the St. Paul acute respiratory syndrome coronavirus made its global debut, there remain human cases in 14 countries across Europe, Africa, and Asia. The pandemic officially ended August 2028, but the virus persists in domesticated animal reservoirs. WHO experts hypothesize that small isolated outbreaks of SPARS were occurring long before the disease emerged on a global scale in 2025. And they anticipate that future outbreaks will continue to emerge unless countries maintain widespread vaccination coverage. As the pandemic tapered off, several influential politicians and agency representatives came under fire for sensationalizing the severity of the event for perceived political gain. As with many public health interventions, successful efforts to reduce the impact of the pandemic created the illusion that the event was not nearly as serious as experts suggested it would be. So I just thought that was kind of like the big key part of that. I'm not going to read all this, but like I said, you can find this on the Centers for Health Security.org. If you type in SPARS pandemic, John Hopkins 2017, you should be able to find that link in a Google engine. And I think I did put that in my links in the Odyssey description. So I'm going to try to kind of. So this goes back to if anyone saw my show about the vaccine timeline I did last week. That's on Odyssey also. And anyway, and it's in the title, Vaccine Timeline. But I also talked about a document from 2016 that I can't remember off the top of my head who had that article. But anyway, it was a government article, but what they said was they had to show that you know what, let me see if I can just pull it up. It might still be on one of my it might still be up here. I gotta get back to that one later. Sorry. Yeah, my computer reset, so everything's kind of a little bit off here. Oh, maybe it's up under this one, maybe. Anyway, it's in my last week's, but anyway, they talked about how they were advancing the CDC, gosh, I wish I could find it, man. That would really help. So I could read it to you exactly word for word. I got like a billion. Yeah, I don't want to. I don't want to really like take up too many people's time watching this, but it basically goes back to how they had to keep the pandemic going on and on and on and on, because if you couldn't keep it going on, you couldn't keep people's interest in it. Then you couldn't create a vaccine platform. And their whole goal was to try to keep this thing going. They needed some kind of outbreak that would go on and keep going on, so they could keep interest generated, so they could show profitability for vaccine manufacturers. So they had to have it last a long time. They needed to create a demand for it. And they kind of created an artificial demand by creating these mandates. Because now it's like, oh, well, life is being destroyed if you don't get vaccinated. Why? Well, why is life being destroyed? Well, because we're having to shut things down because we're trying to control the virus spread. But it's a deadly virus. I mean, you know, one out of like a couple thousand people die from it. But you know, they want to keep pushing that narrative that, oh, well, yeah, but it's spreading and people die from it. You know, people can die from it. You know, if they're got real low vitamin D levels, they're out of shape, they're fat, they're like 200 pounds overweight. You know, yeah, this thing can kill you. You know, it's like and if you don't give them any kind of pre-hospitalization treatment and things like that, yeah, it might kill you. So, you know, you got to get the vaccine. And and also in that same video, I do show images about how you know, in August of 2020, that Trump CDC director changed the definition of vaccination. So, you know, all this stuff was changed under the Trump administration. People got to keep that in mind. Same time when he's trying to supposedly go with the Sweden model and hire Scott Atlas, who I'm planning on interviewing. It might take a couple of weeks because my schedule is so busy and he's got a busy schedule. But and I like to ask him some questions because he's got a new book out. So I want to go over his book with him, but I also would like to ask him about things that happened during the Trump administration, because I think, you know, some of these things are real key to me. Because see, these are just some of the things I would like to ask people that were working around the Trump administration, because we know like these vaccine trials were only like they had a 17-day preclinical trial before they submitted the authorization to the FDA, you know, or submitted papers asking the FDA, hey, is it okay if we start shooting this into human beings now and start doing human trials? So he had 17 days of researching this, whether it was safe, whether it was effective, whether and part of my thing is I would like to ask these people, codon optimization. How much do they know about this? How much do they know if it was actually creating, the chemical spike protein that it's supposed to create? Like, was it chemically right? When it was fed into this, when the mRNA was fed into the cell, was the cell spitting out the correct protein? Was it also folded the proper way? Because it's got to be both. It's got to be like chemically coated the right way, and it's got to be folded the right way, or else it does a whole different effect on the body, and it can have very detrimental effects to the body, right? And if it's not coming out every single time like that, then, I mean, all these times when it's coming out different ways, what's that doing to the body? Where's the research on that? And I have a hard time believing after 17 days of doing this preclinical trials, they even knew that it was for sure working right. And did you actually know it was the spike protein that you needed to make a vaccine for? That you need to design this mRNA for? Was that actually going to work? Was that actually the proper way? You got to remember, this is a brand new technology. These are brand new nanoparticles. Was all this working exactly the right way? Being coded the right way, everything. Was everything going the right way? Where is all the tests and studies so we can see them? Okay. And I'd like to know, like someone like Scott Atlas, maybe Peter McCall might know. I know he knows Scott Atlas. And if, someone, because I know a lot of you people out there interview these same people, if you could ask them these questions, that would be nice. I don't mind if you beat me to the punch, because I am pretty busy. And I could just cancel it if you do a good enough job and just be like, okay, I forget it. These other people, I'll just promote their show. They already beat me to all these questions. But see, one of the things that Scott Atlas said was that when these people showed up for these briefings, that I can't remember if it's like the head of the the HHS, or the head of the NIAID would show up. These like guys that are at the top of the coronavirus task force. When they showed up, he was like, they didn't bring studies or data to the meetings. It's like, and that seems kind of weird. It seems like, okay, hey, we're trying to save a bunch of lives. Why aren't these people bringing up, hey, here's a study of ivermectin, let's talk about it. Here's a study about hydroxychloroquine, let's talk about it. Because there's multiple studies. There's like 100 studies. You're not going to talk about a couple of these studies when you go to these briefings. I mean, why not? Why aren't you talking about this stuff? And it's like, okay, so when a guy like Pierre Corey, Dr. Pierre Corey testifies, he's a guy who was using ivermectin on the front lines and saving lives, and he has all these studies. It's like, okay, and he goes and testifies in front of the Senate. I'd like to know, what were these people saying after he testified in front of the Senate? I mean, were they like, oh no, I mean, it's bogus what he's saying, or were they saying it's good, or were they not discussing it at all? See, that's kind of a real that would bring up a lot of red flags to me. And I'd also like to know why they weren't publicly telling people across the nation, hey, we see that there's a correlation between, or at least looks like there's a correlation between low vitamin D levels and death from coronavirus. So maybe, guys, I mean, now we won't say it works, but why not take some vitamin D at a safe level, and just make sure that that's not helping. See, we never even got a national announcement, or even local announcements from our local health departments talking about that. And another thing is, why did they keep saying that? I believe it's the CDC that keeps saying it's a 3.5% death rate. And some people, I notice some of the people that are speaking out against this now, I'm finally starting to wake up a little bit, like Jimmy Dore, who's actually doing some pretty good stuff, kind of exposing all this too. He's a Democrat comedian that's now doing pretty good work exposing all this. And he said, at first he didn't look at any of this stuff. he wasn't really concerned. He wasn't even concerned about the vaccine safety for the most part. He was just like, I don't really want to know. I just want to take it. I just want everything to go back to normal. And then after things weren't going back to normal, that's when he started looking into all this. But anyway, but one of the questions he keeps asking, and no one, I don't know why anyone doesn't bring this up, but he keeps asking him, well, where does the CDC get this 3.5%, and why is there this difference? And part of the thing is people forget about this. Well, I think I got it on my Facebook already pulled up. That way I don't have to search through a million different things. Because I know I just recently posted this. Pretty sure I posted this. Oh my gosh, did I not? Why didn't it get posted? Okay, I'm real sorry. Okay. How did that not get posted? Oh, I know how to find it though. Let's see here. Antibody. California. Okay, I think this is it where I found all this data.
Wait, is that a baby on the field? Defensive linemen are playing.
Sorry. I thought this was the article. Okay. Well, darn it. I don't know. Sorry. It's like I'm in such a hurry to get this done because I got to go to work tonight. So I don't have time to pull up all these tabs. But anyway, there was this research article that came out. It was about April of 2020. And what they did was they took this population in California, tested all the people to see if they had antibodies, to see how many people had antibodies. And some people are like, well, Chris, how come the CDC is getting the 3.5% or whatever deaths per 100 and you're getting something like 0.03 or 0.05? How come you're getting this like really crazy low number? And part of the reason is I was calculating antibody results into the test. And I did have a video, but YouTube has long since deleted that whole channel of mine. But I had a video where I was calculating it. And I showed you how I calculate it from these new news articles and these scientific surveys. And I took the population and they said, by our estimates, at least in this area, they took a small size and then basically extrapolated that to be, okay, in this area, there should be about 200 to 400,000 people that have antibodies already. Now, and they showed that they had a certain amount of deaths. I can't remember off the top of my head. But when you take now, the case number was way lower. So when it says so if you got 10,000 cases and 300 people dying, well, that's 3%, isn't it? But if it's 400,000 people that have antibodies, which means 400,000 people could have had cases if you had tests sooner and you were testing everybody, 400,000 people could have had. You could have had 400,000 cases. Now, if you divide 400,000 into 300 deaths, what do you get? You get like 0.00 or 0.03 or something really crazy low. I can't remember the number off the top of my head, but it was a lot lower than 3.4%. And so basically I just kind of rounded things up, and I said, at worst, it's you have a 99.97 survival rate at worst. It's probably a lot higher than that. And that's kind of going by tricking the numbers one way and the other way, to favor it more and to favor it less. But that's how you get that number. That's why it's a lot lower than 3.5%. Anyway, now that I got this pulled up, there is a couple other things I want to touch on real quick. I do want to touch on the Vatican real quick. But yeah, I'm going to play this one clip because I think this is pretty important.
Why don't we blow the system up? I mean, obviously we can't just turn off the spigot on the system we have and then say, hey, everyone in the world should get this new vaccine we haven't given to anyone yet.
Now, remember, this is from October 29th, 2019.
But there must be some way that we grow vaccines mostly in eggs, the way we did in 1947.
In order to make the transition from getting out of the tried and true egg growing, which we know gives us results that can be, beneficial. I mean, we've done well with that, to something that has to be much better. You have to prove that this works. And then you've got to go through all of the clinical trials, phase 1s, phase 2s, phase 3, and then show that this particular product is going to be good over a period of years. That alone, if it works perfectly, is going to take a decade.
There might be a need or even an urgent call for an entity of excitement out there that's completely disruptive, that's not beholden to bureaucratic strings and processes.
So we really do have a problem of how the world perceives influenza, and it's going to be very difficult to change that unless you do it from within and say, I don't care what your perception is, we're going to address the problem in a disruptive way and in an iterative way, because you do need both.
But it is not too crazy to think that an outbreak of a novel avian virus could occur in China somewhere. We could get the RNA sequence from that, beam it to a number of regional centers, if not local, if not even in your home at some point, and print those vaccines on a patch and self-administer.
So I thought that was kind of a pretty interesting clip. And it kind of goes, I wish I could have played this right after what I said at the beginning, because I think that would have really kind of helped cement everything that's actually going on. So let me... Okay, and here's one interesting thing I thought Tim Truth did.
Any possible doubts, whether or not well-founded, about the safety of the vaccine cannot be allowed to exist in view of the need to assure that the vaccine will continue to be used to the maximum extent consistent with the nation's public health objectives. Wow, this is incredible. This is from Robert Malone's Twitter, and I just confirmed it. We're going to dive in here. This is Dr. Malone, MD. He was instrumental in the development of the mRNA technology. His bio reads, inventor of mRNA vaccines and RNA as a drug. Look at this. Once again, please remember, it is written into federal U.S. law that the government shall lie about vaccine safety and efficacy. We're going to come back to this image here. This is the key excerpt from this document here. This is the Federal Register from 1984, June the 1st, 1984, and it's buried at the bottom of this document. The Federal Register is the official journal of the federal government of the United States. Now, here's the key excerpt. Any possible doubts, whether or not well-founded, about the safety of the vaccine cannot be allowed to exist in view of the need to assure that the vaccine will continue to be used to the maximum extent consistent with the nation's public health objectives. So I'm going to put a link to this document in the description. This is on page 255. Any possible doubts, whether or not well-founded, about the safety of the vaccine cannot be allowed to exist in view of the need to assure that the vaccine will continue to be used to the maximum extent consistent with the nation's public health objectives. Wow. So this is straight from volume 49, number 107, Friday, June the 1st, 1984, Rules and Regulations. I'll leave a link in the description. Page 255. Any possible doubts, whether or not well-founded, about the safety of the vaccine cannot be allowed to exist because they want to keep using the vaccine to the maximum extent. That's the public health objective. Accordingly, because of the importance of the vaccine and of maintaining public confidence in the immunization program that depends on it, good cause exists to issue these amendments as a final rule effective immediately. The fact that the amendment relieves a restriction also justifies making the rule effective immediately. So effective immediately, any possible doubts, even if well-founded, about the safety of the vaccine cannot be allowed to exist because they want to push the vaccine. Now, this was back mostly concerning the polio vaccine, but the question is, does the same rule apply? It sure seems like it. So let's do a deep dive here, give us some context into what they're talking about. This is the Department of Health and Human Services, Food and Drug Administration. Additional standards for viral vaccines, polio vaccine, live, oral. So it's very interesting what they're doing here. This is concerning the oral poliovirus vaccine, also known as the Salk vaccine. So one thing that jumped out at me is they had this thing about 5 lots. And they're saying, if I'm reading this right, that they don't all have to be effective or safe. So here's a key section. FDA is also amending 630.11 by removing the provision that the 5 lots of oral poliovirus vaccine used in the required clinical trials each show satisfactory results in all prescribed tests. So they're removing requirements for satisfactory results. This change is prompted by questions concerning whether all lots of polio vaccine used in clinical trials in 61 and 62 as a basis for the currently licensed oral poliovirus vaccine showed satisfactory results in several tests. In tort litigation involving the federal government and private parties, questions have been raised concerning whether some of the lots of vaccine used in 61 and 62 clinical trials met the test standard for neurovirulence prescribed in section 630.16b1. The purpose of the tests, which is performed in monkeys, is to assure that the live virus used in the oral poliovirus vaccine is properly attenuated, non-virulent. FDA has reviewed the data and has concluded that, although there may be a question as to whether the results of all the neurovirulence tests met the standard in the regulations, there is no doubt that the oral poliovirus vaccine used in the clinical trials involving 195,000 subjects was of acceptably low neurovirulence. Nevertheless, for the oral poliovirus vaccine used in the initial clinical trials, the results of the test for monkey neurovirulence are open to interpretation and might be considered not to meet the specific terms of 630.16b1. So what did the FDA do? It says right here. The FDA has concluded that it is in the best interest of the public health to amend 630.11 to eliminate the unnecessary requirement that the vaccine used in clinical trials show satisfactory results in all tests applicable to lots used in clinical trials, and thus avert any possible loss of confidence in the polio immunization program.
So I thought that was pretty key. I know a lot of people on Odyssey probably follow Tim Truth. Don't mean to kind of repeat some of the same stuff that you probably already heard. But the thing is that little bit that was a helpful little review. You know what I mean? It's only 5 minutes, and that's not bad. To review some things you already know and review them again. That's kind of how I kind of keep learning everything. And then it's like, I think just to finish up the show, because I got to keep it like an hour long. I really wish I could do more. There's a ton of things I have found out within just the past couple of weeks that I still have not talked about. That's just piling up. I need like a couple of hours to set up all the tabs properly so I can do the show, and I just don't have the time to do it. Anyway, some people might not know about this, and I know, there's a lot of people out there that's like, oh no, Jews rule the world. But I know just me saying it like that probably made some people very angry. But I want to point out something to you from a newspaper, and this is February 12th, 1929, San Francisco Chronicle. Mussolini and Gaspari signed historic Roman pact. So that was at the Lateran Treaty, okay? And one of the things that you can see right here, heel wound of many years. Why is that important? I know a lot of people that believe Jews run the world don't understand the Bible or don't read the Bible much. So, Revelation, deadly wound. You know what? Let me do the KJV version just to make sure we got. So in Revelation 13:3, it says, "And I saw one of his wounds as it were wounded to death, and his deadly wound was healed. And all the world wondered after the beast." And to me, I just cannot help but wonder, when you read these articles in these papers, does God move these, these people that aren't maybe necessarily Christian to write articles in such a way where it sort of gives you a hint that, hey, prophecy is being fulfilled, Book of Revelations. Not saying that's absolutely what that means. But, I wonder about it, just from that. Okay. And then it says, and all the world wondered after the beast. Well, the thing is, at these ecumenical prayers, you can see like just different religious leaders. Like you got Muslim, Hindu, Russia, Orthodox. I wish you could find like a good. I know like David Hunt. David Hunt. Maybe that would help me show it better. I know like David Hunt has some of these.
Let's bound.
Let me just kind of see if I can fast forward it to that part. Or maybe this one doesn't have it. Oh, that's a shame he didn't put that in there. But anyway, he's got like you can see like all these like various ecumenical conferences. Maybe I should put ecumenical conference. But where you can see all these different world leaders. I'm not gonna. Sorry, man. I wish I had more time. I'd already have all this pulled up for you so you wouldn't have to waste your time. But anyway, like you can just even see right here, I'm just kind of half pulling things up, and it says Pope Francis at Vatican on Hindu feast of Diwali warns against religious fundamentalism, calls Catholics and Hindus to join hands in the light. Well, the Bible says that you're not supposed to mix religions together and things like that. Like Christianity is totally separate, right? And you see him And so when it says, all the world should wonder after the beast, it's like you see this going on. You see like Muslim leader meeting with Pope. Like you can see wise. Here's the leader. You see these Muslim leaders in Iraq and all these other places. You see all these world leaders meeting with the Pope. You see the president bowing to the Pope, the United States president, all these other elected presidents of other countries. You see them bowing to the Pope and going to the Rome, meeting Pope as soon as they're elected, and things like that. And so it does fit Revelation, and that's one of my things I'm saying, I'm just kind of getting to is, and so you have this article saying the deadly wound was healed, and what the Lateran Treaty did was it made the Vatican into a state. It gave it statehood. Now, the key thing to this is, and I want to do more research on this, and if someone else has already done research into this, please let me know. But see, we know at the founding of the American, at the founding of the United States of America, the founding of our Constitution, the Vatican was not a state, really, right? Like, I don't think it was officially a state. But our founding fathers wanted to put provisions in it to where, a Catholic could not run for office. There were many states that outlawed Catholics running for office and holding office. Now, why did they do that? Well, a lot of Protestants were escaping from Europe to come to America for religious freedom because it was freshly in their minds about things like the Inquisition and things like that. The Guy Fawkes event, where the gunpowder plot in 1605, where Guy Fawkes tries to blow up Parliament, that's still fresh in people's minds. They're still talking about that. They're still worrying about that. And they know that the Vatican is very hostile to religious liberty and freedom. True religious freedom and liberty. See, they don't mind when they do these ecumenical councils, as long as everybody else is bowing to it, and as long as it's recognizing it as head. Because when you see these councils, the Pope isn't going around bowing to everybody else. The Pope's sitting there, and everyone's coming to the Pope and bowing, coming to the Pope and bowing again. It's like submission to the Pope, right? So, So the Vatican doesn't mind, if you got religious religious freedom, just as long as it doesn't interfere with their power and what they want to teach. And that's the thing with Protestantism. So Protestants want to make it to where the Vatican, a Catholic, could not hold office. But the difficult thing about that is it was mainly just in the framework of a religion. Like you had these things called papal states, but I think what the problem was, they weren't not a country at the time. But now that they're a government in 1929, I wonder if that changes everything. See, and I don't know if anyone's really covered that and went real deep into that it's a difference between when we wrote the Constitution and what the Vatican was at the founding of the Constitution and what the Vatican was after February 11th, 1929, because now it's a state. So now that it's a state, I think you can actually have some sort of legislation to bar them, unless there's some way they can tell us, hey, I know that this ruler of another country, I know I bow to him. I call him God. I call him Jesus Christ on earth. I'm totally submissive to him. But yet I can tell you how I'm not loyal to him. See, if you can explain that paradox to me, that's fine. Maybe we can still allow you to run for office. But see, if you can't explain that paradox, that would almost be like Putin being like the Orthodox leader of the whole Orthodox Christian church, right? Let's say Putin was the leader, and he's also the president of Russia at the same time, right? Okay, but let's say in Orthodoxy, you could say, oh, that means Putin is in the place of Jesus on earth. That's what Vicar of Christ means. You sit in the place of God on earth, all right? So, and you're also infallible, because that's part of Catholic doctrine too. Catholic canon is that the Pope's infallible. So just imagine Putin is called this, and here's someone running as an Orthodox believer running for office in America, and you already saw how they freak out when just Donald Russia running a few Facebook ads in supporting of Donald Trump, supposedly, right? And how they freaked out about Russian collusion. Okay, but what if Putin was the Orthodox leader and had like a similar position of the Pope in the Orthodox Church? And now you had an Orthodox, let's say Trump was Orthodox, and you're like, yeah, Putin sits in the position of Jesus on earth. I mean, like, just imagine, like, you're actually calling this guy, like, and this is your church leader, right? And most people put the religion above government, and now you're bowing to a foreign leader who sits in that kind of position. See, and that's the thing. It wasn't like that in America's founding. When the Vatican was not like that at the founding of America. It was pretty close to it. But I mean, in 1929, February 11th, 1929, with the Lateran Treaty, it absolutely makes it. So now what I want to know is to understand the paradox of how you can run for office, not be loyal to a foreign leader, but yet have that same foreign leader be your religious leader, right? Like, explain that to me. And if you can explain that to me, you can run for office, and we won't make these laws. But I think those laws need to be made. And, one final point, just to help cement this, Herbert C. Holdridge, letter to Eisenhower. Yeah, see, right here, Pope's Commandos. See, this is Herbert C. Holdridge, who wrote a letter to Eisenhower. Oh, I'd like to blow that up. Okay, so I did get to blow it up a little bit, but let me center it up. I can't get this perfectly blown up centered, sorry. So I'm kind of blown up a little bit, but it says, in summation, and this was written in 1959. Brigadier General Herbert C. Holdridge writes this to Eisenhower. It says, in summation, a vast, hostile, cohesive body of individuals trained in the use of arms and with access to arms, operating nationally and internationally to impress upon the government and the rest of the people of the United States programs of action representing dire peril to our government and our entire society. Operation subversion of our free institutions through schools, press, radio, TV, infiltration into public office, and particularly into the armed forces, where they constitute an armed, tightly organized task force, kind of like coronavirus task force, right? Which is ran by a bunch of Catholics, Fauci, Redfield. I don't know about Birx, but I know Fauci, Redfield, or just a couple off the top of my head, right? So anyway, so I'll kind of start again, but subversion of our free institutions through schools, press, radio, TV, infiltration into public office, and particularly into the armed forces, where they constitute an armed, tightly organized task force for violence against our people and our government, where they have organized a spy ring to betray top secret documents to the Pope and the commanding general of the Jesuits. I won't read this whole thing here. I'll put this in my show notes on Odyssey. But I just kind of wanted to, reiterate, that this has been going on for a while. the Vatican is now a state. So this is not no longer just a church. It's also a foreign country doing this. Now, foreign country. A foreign country with an audience hall that looks like a reptile, a snake, right? I mean, it's like you just kind of keep that in mind. It's like, me personally, I think very much so. And they're not hiding it, and so we don't have to. It's like, we don't have to keep submitting to this. In fact, you know what? One more thing I'll say right off the bat: the Monroe Doctrine of when was it written? I think around 1820. What was the Monroe Doctrine really for? It was to stop the influence of the Vatican in South America because they felt like that was a danger to our country. And then you got, and then in 1841, you start having the Catholic Church try to work into the political arena of America by trying to bribe politicians, basically the Democrat Party, into, hey, if certain politicians running for Democrat, certain Democrats running for office, hey, if you'll do this, we'll help support you on these primary tickets. We'll help make sure you get elected. And once you're elected, please try to remove the Bible from public schools. And also, we want you to alter history books. And see, they didn't do this just with schools. They started doing this with the universities. They started, it progressed. And this is right before. And so like in 1854 is when they started removing the Bibles and altering history books. And then, shortly later, we have a civil war. And part of the biggest thing about the Civil War is the Vatican was backing the South. So all this stuff about, state rights and things like that, what state rights for keeping people as slaves. I know that's going to make some Southerners angry, but when your constitutions that you were using for secession start off with defending slavery, and that's not a good look. That's not a good look for states' rights. And you got to remember, a state. What did our Constitution start by? That God gives us rights, and what's government for? Only to uphold those rights that God gives us. Government does not give you new rights. And so this whole thing about states' rights, it's a totally, completely distorted view. It's a Jesuitical view. And to me, it looks like that, where, you got something above God giving you rights. Well, you don't have rights to make another human being a slave. And the South is just wrong. You people just need to just come to grips with that. It was not what you were taught. You were taught this by a bunch of Jesuits that was running the South, a bunch of Catholics running the South, just because that's why the Pope called Jefferson Davis your honorable president. And Jefferson Davis called the Pope your holiness. Well, that's not coming from a Protestant. No Protestant would call the Pope your holiness. And people knew, because most people called the Pope Antichrist. So you don't call the Antichrist your holiness unless there's something wrong with you or you're Catholic and delusional. And I'll go ahead and bring it up just so people know. Pope or Pope or president. So you can find Pope or President on archives.org. I'll try to remember to put this link in the description. But if you go to page, so you can understand where I'm getting this information from, I'm not making it up off the top of my head. Go page 246. It's a chapter on Bible in the public schools. And we go down here to And so anyway, it starts talking about on page 248. I guess I got to go back one. Let me go back to the bottom of page 247. And it says, the Word of God is not only a prohibited book in the Romish system, but the reading of it or the hearing of it read is made the worst of criminal offenses and punished by the Inquisition, which is what they used to do, and that's why we escaped to America. We come now to the war on God's holy word by its expulsion from the public and free schools of this country. In 1841, Bishop Hughes, which is the Archbishop of New York, in effect offered the Roman Catholic vote for sale at Carroll Hall in the city of New York if the Bible would be excluded from the common schools of this movement. So here we got a source for it. It's not just this book that's saying it. It's also coming from the New York Herald of June 20th, 1854 says, the operations of Bishop Hughes on the school question caused the nomination of a Catholic ticket for the Senate and Assembly and had the effect to cause divisions between Americans and adopted citizens at Tammany Hall, which was the Catholics. Thus, the Herald ascribes to Bishop Hughes the first church movement in political affairs of our country by introducing religion into the arena of politics and nominating a Catholic ticket for the Senate and Assembly on the school question. Let every Protestant and patriot remember this fact. 38 schools in the city of New York alone abolished the Bible, and the commissioners were appointed to expunge from the pages of the school books all facts of history which were displeasing to the papal system. Books so mutilated and defaced with black can now be seen at the Bible House in that city. This Bible expulsion from schools began by the Archbishop in New York legislature, was followed by a similar effort in the McClintock Bill in Pennsylvania. 9 states of the Union have made the attempt to expel the Bible from schools. In California, they have been successful. So I'm just kind of stop it there, but just letting you know, like, I'm not just making things up. This comes from actual real books, old books printed in the 1800s that you can find and figures out. Also, Bishop Hughes, he's one of those that, led the riots against Lincoln. So see, there's these riots that were going on against Lincoln, and Bishop Hughes was saying, hey, he was trying to get all the Irish Roman Catholics not to take part in the Civil War because it would be a war against the Pope if you fought in the North against the South, because the South was who the Pope was backing. So you were basically fighting against the Pope. So he was telling people, don't get involved or help us riot, And one of the things that Bishop Hughes did was, he started a riot at a black orphanage and stomped these orphans to death. So got to understand, this church has been involved in a lot of things, a lot of the destruction of America and the whole entire world. Like, it's sitting here with all these like corporations helping to move all these pieces together to create this one world order, which it sits at the top of. And my whole thinking is, if we go to that 1929 document of the Lateran Treaty, which gave it, which created it into a papal state, I no longer see how you can, how the Roman Catholic religion in of itself is not even a government associated religion, because it's associated with the government, which you're like, how do these people who run for office and the Roman Catholics like Joe Biden, how are you separating your Catholicism and calling the Pope Vicar of Christ? Basically like kind of like the substitute for Christ on earth. How do you separate this, from, I'm going to be loyal to America, but yeah, I'm calling this guy on the other hand, this human on the other hand, I'm calling him someone almost equal of Christ. basically equal of God, right? And so I just wonder, if we start researching that and going down that line of thought, does that 1929 Lateran Treaty change what Catholics can do in America just because the Vatican now is a state, and that same religious leader they have is the head of a state? Because like I said, that Putin comparison, if you were to make Putin the same kind of person, leader of the Orthodox Church, the Eastern Orthodox Church, so you were to elevate him and he was still to maintain being the leader of Russia plus that. So anyway, I just kind of let it go there. Just a thought I had. Want to share that because that kind of just hit me today. And I wish I had more. Wish I had more time, but that's all I got. And maybe I can try to do something later. Anyway, have a good day.